Hi everybody, how are you doing today? I am going to read a story that was posted, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It came up on my inbox about 2 days ago. And I'm kind of in the same situation as this person with being harassed by the county and their employees. And there's not a real reason for it besides just to harass people and try to get money out of them. Now, I've talked about this very briefly in other videos. And today I'm going to get into it because I'm getting pretty sick of the harassment and the abuse of positions and what they're doing to people over here in Florida. And I believe I'm a target because my house is paid off and they figure I'm a single mother and I'm an easy target to try to steal my home. Now, several years ago, they did go through our county and steal homes from people for various reasons. And one of the main things they'll do is try to start hitting you with code violations, whether they're real or false or made up. And once you get to a certain amount, you can't afford it. You either have to sell your home or they'll take it from you. And that'll be a cold day and you know what before that happens to me. Now, this is where I say again, our rights matter and we need to stand up because as long as we allow it, it will continue. It needs to stop being allowed. Now, what's funny is if you really have a home that's a problem, they don't do nothing about it. But if you don't, they will come after you. And it makes no sense. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my situation, and then I'm going to read the story. Now, I don't want to go too personally into it, but I'm going to say because of personal information in my marriage that people think they knew something about, which they really knew nothing about, which is honestly none of their business. What happened in my family, my marriage, or with my in-laws, or with my husband, or with my children, or whatever. Not saying it did, anything happen between any of those people. I'm just saying if it did, it's nobody's business. That's between me and my husband, me and my in-laws, me and my children, whatever. I will say, I loved my husband very much. He loved me very much. We were best friends until the day he passed. Though that doesn't mean we didn't go through some rough times. He suffered with some issues. And I was kind of the cover-up and the excuse to certain people because his father didn't really want anyone knowing the truth. So it was easy to say, oh, his wife's just driving him crazy. His wife's just doing this. Meanwhile, me and his dad were trying to help him. Now, I don't care because I don't care what people think of me. And it's nobody's business. That's the whole point of the story. Though my father-in-law passed away, my husband passed away. Prior to my husband passing away, he could not afford the house. I gave him my marital home when I left. At one point, he sold that. He got the money from that. He owed me a lot of money. I helped him out in every way I could throughout the years. And most of all, he didn't want the house, which was his father's. And his father wanted me and him to raise our children in it. So, to make a long story short, he stayed there whenever he needed a place or he needed me to help him. And again, I was there with him to the end, and there's no love lost between us. But he didn't want the house, nor could he afford it. On the other hand, I could. And by the time I got it, it was in shambles. I've cleaned it up. I have made it beautiful. But some of my neighbors, or I should say, one of my neighbors, who then got a couple of her friends rallied up, feel like I shouldn't be in that house. So she's made my life, she's tried to make it, because it doesn't bother me, but going through the code stuff now does. But she tried to make my life miserable since the day I moved in. She's fighting a battle that has nothing to do with her. She's fighting a battle that is null and void, because there is no animosity, no hatred, no anger between me and my husband or his family. And whatever was said was to cover up his issues and to try to help him better himself and not have to deal with the stress. And I didn't care if I was used as a pawn or not, because if it helped him to hide his secrets to get the help he needed, that was fine with me. But again, you don't know what's going on in anybody's personal life. So you don't have a right to judge or to decide anything in anybody else's life, especially if you don't even know the person you're attacking. Which is the funniest part of this, is this lady has no clue who I am. I have really no clue who she is. And she's so whacked out of her mind half the time, she doesn't even understand what I'm saying to her. Yeah, I know she lives across the street. I know what she looks like and I know her name. Vice versa. But you don't know me. Nor do you know the intimate details of mine and my husband's relationship, or mine and his family's relationship, or anybody else's that I'm involved with. Though it's kind of creepy that every time I have somebody at my house, including family members from out of state, this woman will try to get them in my front yard, catch them off guard, and just start talking to them and questioning them about who they are and me. You're a stalker. You're a freaking stalker. If me or my kids go on the internet, which a couple times the police told us to take it to court because she should be in serious trouble, she will go on our posts and make up lies. And at the time, my kids were minors, and she would attack my children. She has also came after my 3-year-old with a hammer while walking our dog. And I wasn't there. I was the one she ran home to, but it was her and her dad walking the dog. And somehow she tried to put a spin on it that she was going after the dog because she was scared of the dog. But if you're afraid of a dog, do you come out of your house and run down your roadway, or down to the roadway, to scream about being on your property, which is not your property? They were actually in the road, but if they were in the grass, it's called the county property, because that part is the county property, which the police also explained to her. So if I really wanted to be a nuisance, I could go get a picnic chair and sit on that corner all day, every day. But I'm not crazy like she is. So you went after, and the police knew exactly what she did and how it was, made to look, but what the truth was. But again, did nothing to her. She has come on my property and basically assaulted me and tried to come through my doorway. And she was supposed to be arrested and wasn't. Now, this harassment has been going on for over 15 years. And she's got a few of her neighbor friends to jump in on the bandwagon. And I've had other neighbors say, I don't know what her problem is, because we don't see you except when you leave to go to work and come home. It's a very quiet house. You keep it up very well, blah, blah, blah. You've done a lot to it. And then you got the other hand, the crazies who have joined together to attack somebody who owns a house because they don't feel you should own a house. So needless to say, one of her buddies lived right on the other side of me. And there is a hedge law here in Florida where your hedges have to be kept to a certain height. Well, his hedges have become trees. And these are the hedges that are water seekers that will rip up your property. And not only that, they are not stable in the ground and will fall over and crush your home. Mind you, these hedges were not near his house. They were near my house, right on the property line, which is closest to my garage area and my kitchen and my back porch. And if they fell, they would have crushed my home. Now, the trees were also sick because, again, they're not supposed to be trees. They're supposed to be hedges. They're not balanced. I reported it to code because hurricane season was coming and I was afraid they were going to fall and do damage to my house. This went on for about 5 years. Nothing was ever done. Now, mind you, this neighbor also lived, I don't know if you know the old show Sanford and Son. It's like a junkyard and their house is like in front of their junkyard and they run a junkyard behind them. This was basically this man's house. He had old cars in the backyard with trees growing through them. It was nothing but shrubs. There was a mother-in-law little house thing back there that just rotted and collapsed. And it was beautiful because I know the guy who owned the house prior. And it was an amazing little studio mother-in-law apartment or whatever it was. And it was brand new. This guy owned the house several years and it was dilapidated. And the shed, mother-in-law house, shed, shack, whatever you want to call it, by the time he let it basically rot away, it was a rotted old shed. And there was so many buckets and barrels of water that were infested with mosquitoes, and there was bricks all over the place that were flying debris. There was insulation that the rain had rained and destroyed, and just all kinds of mess. Meanwhile, I'm cleaning this house up, which the yard was just, overgrown or whatever when I got it. And so I removed some trees and bushes and whatever, cleaned it up really nice. The house wasn't totally bad. It just needed some TLC because when my father-in-law passed, my husband and some other people had it for a while before I took control of it, and it was not taken care of for those years. Now, the house is painted. I had a beautiful garden. If you were to Google my house, you would see the beautiful picture of what I've done and whatever. So, anyways, I complained and complained, especially every time hurricane season came. Well, the final one came, the trees went down, and they, thank God, fell towards his house, which barely skimmed his house. But if they would have fell the other way, they would have completely crushed my house. But the roots, because he left the house unattended for so long, they were going into my property to search for water, which again, my pool pump, my sprinkler system, everything was on that side of the house, which was my fear. And when I went to Home Depot, they told me they will come towards your house and destroy it. Could have messed up the foundation to my house and so on and so on. So it ripped up, the roots ripped up my walkway, my gate, and were under my AC unit, broke through my pipes from my sprinkler system. It did a lot of damage. My sidewalk was sitting literally like this. Now, it ripped up my gate. I called code. They did nothing. I called code. They did nothing. The neighbor called code because they realized, her gate's not on so good and she's got a pool back there. All of a sudden, code's interested. Now, mind you, besides her trying to hit my daughter with a hammer, attacking my family, going on social media, they had called animal control on me several times. Everything they have ever called on is unfounded. Mind you, the last call must have scared them because the officer was ticked. The actual animal control officer. Again, PBSO does nothing. And she should have went to jail. The animal control officer was called off of a mauling where a dog had mauled a woman because what they had said about me was so much more serious. They said that I threw a half-dead dog over a fence to die. How sick are you to even come up with that? Mind you, the only issue that ever happened was my blind dog, because she was well past her prime, which means she was very well taken care of. Even when we went to we had to put her down eventually. Animal control had said that they were very shocked that this dog was still alive. And that they have never seen one that old. So obviously I did a good job taking care of my pets. As well as my pets are like my children. So of course I'm going to. But again, look back. They said that I threw a half-dead dog over the fence and this guy left a mauling. A very serious incident and situation to come to a fake call. And still the police officer did nothing, which pissed excuse me, I hope that doesn't get me in trouble, but really upset the animal control officer, because he even was like, I can't believe this officer is not doing anything. I left a mauling for this. Meanwhile, I brought my animals out one at a time. They checked them. They're healthy. The police officer was actually trying to say, well, what's that on the dog? What's that on the dog? And the animal control officer is telling him, those are cataracts. That's because the dog is so old. And that's why she couldn't see where she was going. And that's why she yelped when they picked her up. Because, they don't know who's grabbing them. It could be another animal trying to harm them. And that's what happened. She got out in the yard and somebody went to pick her up to bring her back in the house. And she yelped. That's what happened. But that was in the front yard. They said I threw a dog over my back fence that was half dead. My other dog, he was kind of older and he chewed on his tail. And you know how they get them little bald spots? Again, the officer's trying to find a reason to harass me. And the animal control officer's going, no. Understand, this is a BS call. All her animals are very healthy. They look very healthy and they're very well taken care of, because for this dog to live to this age, she's got to be doing a good job. So I just want to give you some background information on how ridiculous this is. That's why I'm explaining in detail about the calls and the accusations that are being made and what are actually the findings. One week or whatever, my lawnmower broke. And I took it to the shop because it was a very expensive lawnmower. And I said, hey, how long before I can get this back? Meanwhile, it's rain season. So it's, give and take whether you can mow or not, because it just folds the grass down and it's bad for your lawnmower. They told me 3 days. It ended up being 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the grass wasn't but maybe a half an inch high or higher than it should be. And they called it code on me. I gave the ticket to code. I showed them, and they're like, code officer said, what, they can't offer you a lawnmower? I said, exactly. It'd be a lot easier. But these people are jerks. And he goes, some people use us like that. Now, mind you, again, this is 15 years of this. And I said, when are you people going to do something about the harassment? 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years, maybe even pushing to say somebody's abusing our county resources. But this is over 15 years that I have to deal with this stress. That when we're home, we only go out in the backyard. We hang out inside the house or the backyard to have a good time. We don't go in the front yard, just not to have to deal with anything, and I shouldn't even have to live like that. Mind you, the beautiful garden I had out front, again, was immaculate. I used to have the people stop and tell me how beautiful it was. I spent an hour to 2 hours in it every morning when I got home from work. So at that time, I worked the overnight shift. And then I'd go in, take a shower, and go to bed. Even the teenage kids on the bus who usually don't care about nothing would roll down or pull down their little slots windows and be like, oh my God, ma'am, that's so beautiful. The colors are amazing, because you don't see colors here in Florida. It's green and brown, green and brown. Everywhere you look, it's green and brown. I had beautiful assortment of colors. And everybody who sees a snapshot of that is really upset that I had to take it down, just because I didn't want to be harassed while I was doing my gardening, which the one across the street would sit out there and harass me and start saying stuff to try to antagonize me to, say something back so that she could argue, and I wouldn't feed into it. And I'm not going to give her that satisfaction. I just be like, okay, go drink another one. Have a nice day. And so after 15 years of this again, and me calling about the overgrown trees, which were actually a situation that they should have handled. That's what code is actually for. And they did nothing. They waited for my trees, or his trees, to fall. Thank God, not on my house. But they did a lot of damage. And then they wanted to give me a hard time about fixing my gate. Which, how do you fix the gate if his tree's roots are entwined in my gate? I could have put my gate right back up and reburied everything and just mended it. And maybe I would have just had to get a little bit more of because it was actually the wire gate. I might have had to get another piece of that and replace some of it where I couldn't cut the roots off of it. But I believe most of it I could have just cut the roots from around it. But the problem was the stumps, which were, if you take your arms as big, as far out as you can and touch your fingers to each other, they were that big or bigger. And the way I would have had to stand there, like I said, it was like this. Every couple steps, there was big cracks and big roots, and it was very dangerous to do that. Now, what he did to help himself was he cut the tree part off, so he had freedom on his part, but he left the stumps and the roots that were still in my property and in my gate, and just a mess. Now, we did try to talk to him, and he would, every time he seen us, was run in the house and avoid us. So I finally left a note on the door, and I basically said, hey, let's just do this neighborly. Your trees messed up my yard. Can we come to an agreement? We'll all go out there, and it'll cost us less to nothing just to fix it together. Never got a response. So one day, somebody caught him outside from my house and said, hey man, your trees really ripped up her yard. What are we going to do? Are you going to help us with it? And he said, I ain't going to do S. And so I started filing the paperwork, and I could have been a real, and I could have sued him, and I could have been tied up in the courts and wasted my time and this and that. So, again, code comes by and says, well, you haven't done nothing with the gate. Or the fence, sorry. We did repair the gate part, but I skipped a part. In the meantime, okay, so that they couldn't say nothing about anybody falling into my pool, we had put up a temporary wall to block off the walkway. Now, the other code officer that was working on his situation had suggested, because I had like like something placed up there and secured, that it would be better if I had just a big piece of wall, like kind of bolted into the side of my house. Then they couldn't do or say anything because the pool was definitely secured. They couldn't move, everything and still get through it, which was ridiculous. So we tore down our little makeshift blockage, and we actually got a big piece of thick, heavy wood, and we bolted it to the wall. And the lady was there when he told me to do this. Now, mind you, the guy that's going after the guy next door whose trees had fell was trying to help me, and my own code officer was being a you-know-what. She then tells me that I have to get a permit for that temporary wall that was only going to be there for the time that I was waiting for him to remove the stumps so that I could fix my little piece of fencing and my gate. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's a temporary thing so that nobody can get into my pool and get hurt. But what I realized towards the end was they were really trying to get me with some kind of safety hazard, because then they would really have a case and they could have really screwed me over. But everything I was doing was to prevent things just out of safety. And she was trying to make me undo them so that she would have a reason to hammer me with something. And the one who's not my code officer was actually a decent man, and he was like all the other ones, like, this is BS. And like I said, he agreed with me. If things would have been taken care of when the tree complaint went in, none of this stuff would have ever happened. But now, because the neighbor caused me grief, I'm your target. How the frick is that? How is that? So I'm your new target. Not Sanford and Son. Not Crazy Pants across the street. Me, I'm your target. Not the one using every county resource to try to stir up trouble for 15 years and wasting county resources. And not Mr. Sanford and Son. Me, the one trying to live right. I'm the one you're coming after. Are you freaking kidding me? Okay, so let's make this a little shorter because we're getting on here in time. Now, I've done everything that they've asked me to do. And she told me, you just fix the gate, you'll be fine. Just fix the gate, you'll be fine. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I've been trying to do. You think I want my property sitting in shambles? Which wasn't, again, caused by me. It was caused by somebody else. Now, I'm your target. Me, my husband, I'm sorry, not my husband, my daughter's husband, me, my daughter's husband, and a couple people ended up fixing the walkway and replacing the gate, putting the rest of the fence back up that was knocked down. It was done. Everything was done. We thought it was, cool. She said, get these things done. The case will be closed out. No problem. So the next thing I know, I get served court papers to show up for a hearing. A hearing, I don't know why, because the gate is fixed. That was the only complaint. The gate being knocked down and access to my pool. Everything was done. Now they want me to pay for a fence permit. Now my fence has been there for 50 plus years because the fence has been there since the house was built. My father-in-law built the house. Why would I pay for a fence permit when the fence has been there for 50 plus years? And all I did was repair what was damaged. I didn't put up a new fence. Why would I have to pay for a brand new fence permit? She went even further than that. She went and dug up something from over 15 years ago, which way back then I tried to find out who did this job. I knew who did it, but I needed proof. And they couldn't give it to me for over 15 years. Now she's saying I had an addition to my house, which was not the case. There was no addition to my house. It was, they added a roof there was, I guess, a porch that the whole porch and pool were screened in, and a hurricane had took the screening down. So he just screened in the porch instead of the whole pool again. So they, I guess, extended the roof a little bit and then put a new roof on. That is not an extension to the house. She kept telling me the house was extended. Wherever your house is extended, you have to take a permit out for it. You have to take a permit out. Why would I have to take a permit out for it? I have not done any work to this house. So I got a court date in less than, I think, a week. I'm calling around. This lady hasn't been giving me any honest information. She won't even tell me what the heck she's talking about. And if there's paperwork on something, you know what the paperwork is about, but she wasn't giving me any answers. She just kept telling me to find the extension that was added onto my house. So I called to try to get a hold of her supervisor, and I got a hold of the secretary. And the secretary told me it was BS. She was going to go downstairs and have it all wiped out. But then she called me back and she says, I can't because it's in a company's name and that company is responsible for it. You need to have them. They never did the follow-up inspection and this and that and close out the permit. Well, duh. I called you on this over 15 years ago and asked you who did it, because then I could have sued them. Because the roof was never done right. And the roof had leaks from the day one that it was put on, and caused multiple damage to my house that I put multiple money into it, because other people were just patching it and then letting the leak sit. And when I got the house, I had to fix it. So you couldn't give me that information way back when, but it took this secretary 2 minutes. Oh, and the worker couldn't give me the information of what the hell she was talking about. But it took the supervisor 2 minutes to give me the information. Do you not see that this is a game? So, meanwhile, you cost me a lawsuit, a new roof, and now you're harassing me for something that was done over 15 years ago that even the supervisor secretary said should have been wiped away, or is the company's fault, and you're coming after me for it, which was added to that court hearing that I knew nothing about. Now, when I talked to the supervisor the day before court, he was telling me that she changed the gate into a pool barrier, which was not in the paperwork that she'd given me. So whether it's a fence or a pool barrier, it's still the same thing. It still blocks people from getting into the property. So what does it matter? So you know what? Just to make it all go away, I said, I'll take care of the fence. I'll pay the freaking fence permit, even though you shouldn't. There's no reason I should be paying this. Because all I did was fix a gate and a corner piece of a fence. It was like the walkway on this side of my house, but it's basically half the corner piece. So why? Because they're trying to get me to pay a bunch of money that I don't owe. And if I don't pay it, they'll start fining me. So meanwhile, again, I finally get the supervisor comes up with this, that it's not a fence no more, it's a pool barrier. She jumps on that and puts it in her paperwork, but my paperwork says something different. Now, when I try to bring this all up in the hearing, except the fact that, well, outside the hearing with the supervisor, and then my friend who is smart about legal wanted to set me up with an attorney and said, just don't testify to anything, because he agreed with me. I really don't want to testify to something I don't know about, because, and also I'm not going to take, responsibility legally and put it on myself by saying something in court. And I hadn't had enough time to look into anything or find out my legal rights. So and mind you, I was threatened that if I didn't show up at this hearing, they were going to hit me hard. So I was threatened into showing up. So I told him, listen, to make this easy. Now, meanwhile, this worker is in the hallway arguing with me and being really nasty. This one who started off so sweet and helpful and then ended up turning and then ended up really turning. So it was a big game. It's a big game to her. And she's now wanting to, I guess, make her seen and work her way up by attacking people and getting money that's really not owed and harassing citizens. So I go to the court hearing, and like I said, I talked to the supervisor outside, and me and him came to an agreement, and I told him how I think it's really ridiculous that this woman, I've dealt with code for 15 years, and the guys have always been so pleasant and knew what was going on. This woman has now turned into I don't even know what, like an attack, a monster that just wants to attack you. And she got up and proved her point like that in the hearing too. And I told him, my friend is setting me up with a lawyer. I want to know my rights before I agree to anything. And I have no problem agreeing to part of what you're saying, but the part with that belongs to them contractors, I'm not going to speak on, because I'm not going to end up accepting responsibility for that when it's not mine. So when I got called up and I said that exact same thing, I said, listen, I had no problem with putting the permit money just to make this go away. Okay, because I don't need the hassle. I don't need to miss work. I don't need to be in this mess. But this is not what she's told me from the very beginning. It went to fix this, we're done. Thought I was done, and the next thing I'm getting hit with a court date, and I don't even know why. Now, meanwhile, she had told me when she found out I had that conversation with the secretary, she tried to tell me that conversation never happened, and I might as well forget that it happened. So, in other words, good luck it wasn't recorded and that conversation never happened. Although the secretary admits it happened after I called her back and talked to her about it. So she basically told the secretary not to do anything either and to stay out of it. So I let when I got up and I said my piece, I told this paperwork wasn't right. The paperwork I got is different. I never signed for anything. I've never got any other paperwork. And I have no problem cooperating or paying what I have to pay or what I'm responsible to pay. But I'm not going to speak or testify today until I talk to a lawyer, because I need to know my rights. And the man actually talking to the people in front of the lady who's supposed to be the judge, but he's like the lawyer in between, I would guess, attacked me and threatened me and told me if I wanted to talk to a freaking attorney, I could talk to one, and I was going to waste my time and my money, and I was still going to do what he wanted me to do. And that if that was my choice, then I was going to get hit hard. And when I came back, he was going to make sure I paid the highest and top fees that he could hit me with, and that if anything else happened, he was going to damn sure come after me. Threat after threat after threat. This is your code enforcement. And who do you go to? Who do you go to? What do you do when you're attacked? Because I've seen other videos on here just like this, and other people saying the same thing I do. And they don't have a right to do this. I own my home. It's mine. Why do I have to get an okay by them to do anything to my house? Meantime, I am not even the one who did anything to the house. I didn't even have the house at that time. And this would have all been resolved almost 20 years ago if they didn't lie to me about not knowing who did the work on that roof. And now I'm supposed to be attacked and I'm supposed to deal with all this when they're the ones who lied. They're the ones who told me, just like right before the hearing, and I called and I said, can I have these records to one of the operators or whoever answers the phone and deals with that in that part of the business the building department. And they say, oh, it's in storage, it's going to take us blah blah blah. Really? When I called the secretary, it took her 2 minutes. The lady called me back 2 months later finally and said, if you want a copy of the papers, you're going to have to pay this much a page and come down here, but you need to let me know today or I'm not going to be able to get that for you. I already got that information. It took the lady 2 minutes, and even the secretary said, I don't know why they're telling you that. Because they're lazy. And they know if they don't give you the information, you can't fix anything, and then they can try to fine you and threaten you and etc. And I hope you've been able to keep up with everything I'm saying, because it's a lot. It's 15 years worth of aggravation. And I know I backtrack sometimes, but it's just a lot. And sometimes you get going and you forget a piece, but I hope you're really keeping up. And on the point of it, the whole point is they're full of BS. And again, where are our rights in this? So the county gets to play games with you. The neighbors get to use them to play games with you. And you have no freaking rights nor protection from any of this. And you're not even the one violating anything. The guy next door is, and they're not doing a damn thing to him. Now, if my hedges were on his yard, bet your bottom dollar they would have came after me. The first day. And then my yard was beautiful and kept up. But you got a problem with my yard. And he was telling me in that hearing that if my grass got this much bigger than what it was supposed to be, he'd be out there finding me again and again and again. Again, threat after threat after. Do you go outside and measure your grass every morning? Because he gave me a limit to what my grass could be in height. And if it's a little bit, just a little bit taller, he's going to hit me with fines. Is this how code is supposed to work? It's supposed to jump on a harassment bandwagon that they know that's been going on for 15 years and that you've been trying to get them to stop this for 15 years, and then they just jump on the bandwagon to harass some innocent person because my house is the one that's paid off? Because they think they're going to steal it from me. And that will be a cold day in hell. Now, I don't want to hit this hour mark, and I know I'm really close. But here is somebody else. I'm going to try to get a hold of this person in my area. And let me tell you what they're doing to her and her family. Florida woman faces crippling fines of $165,250 per parking on her own driveway. The Florida woman faces more than $100,000 in fines for parking violations on her own driveway. Town officials in Lantana, a small burg on the Atlantic coast just south of West Palm Beach, have slapped Sandy Martinez with $101,750 in fines, $250 a day, which they threatened me if I try to do anything to my house from here on out, it's going to be $100 a day. And I haven't even tried to do anything to my house, so why do they keep sending me this letter repeatedly? Again, harassment. For parking cars partially on her own grass, which literally, when they say that, it's like this, just the rim of the tire. That's according to the lawsuit filed on Thursday by the Institution for Justice, and I got to get a hold of them too. A libertarian, told you, this dark's going to start messing with me. A libertarian public interest legal aid group that is suing the town on Martinez's behalf. But that's not all. The town, according to the court records, has also hit Martinez with a $16,120 fine in fines for having cracks in her driveway. And there is another penalty of $47,375 for having a downed fence in her yard, apparently damaged after a storm, by which it was fixed once she completed her insurance claim. Overall, cost of $165,250, nearly quadruple what Martinez makes in a year. The town is sticking strictly to the letter of its code, which says all of the street parking spaces, including driveways, shall be asphalt, concrete, or block, and shall be hard surfaced and in good repair, in compliance with town codes. In court documents, though, the Institution for Justice asserts the crippling fines were impossible for travel code violations, and that they are both excessive and unconstitutional under Florida state constitution. According to the lawsuit, Martinez works in a medical office that treats cancer patients, and in order to make things work financially, she shares her home of the last 17 years with her mother, her older sister, and her 3 children, 2 of whom are adults. Together, the 4 of them, Sandy, the sister, and the 2 adult children, share traditional burdens of maintaining a household, but have 4 working adults in a single-family home means having 4 drivers on 4 different schedules who need a place to park, the lawsuit says. That often means that there were 4 cars parked in their driveway. This arrangement results in the outer wheels of each car extending slightly beyond the edge of the driveway, particularly onto the walkway on one side and onto the grassy area on the other. The only safe, sensible way to park the cars is by arranging them in the driveway with the other side of the cars extended partially onto the grass or walkway. The lawsuit adds nothing that parking on the streets would block a lane of traffic. Given all the legal and particular restrictions on where Sandy can park, the reality is that when everyone is home, it is impossible to park without putting the cars in harm's way or risking violation city ordinances. Thankfully, the neighbors do not complain and have never asked Sandy to be more mindful about how she parks. The neighbors understand that Sandy and her family members need to be able to get to work and school. The Institution for Justice argues Sandy and her family live paycheck to paycheck, which I as well do, and I'm one person, not 4. And I take care of my older children and my grandchildren and my 5-year-old. And I'm the one working in my household, but I help everybody. Sandy and her family, paycheck to paycheck. Each member of the household works and contributes however they can. I'm the only one contributing to mine. After paying her mortgage bills and basic living expenses, there is nothing left. A cracked driveway does not present a legitimate threat to the health and safety of the general public in Lantana. A broken fence does not present a legitimate threat to the health and safety or general public in Lantana. Parking more cars in the driveway than its space can technically fit, accommodate is not a legal threat to the health or safety of the public in Lantana, Martinez's lawyer includes. Taking together the city's fines of $1,600 165,250 for code violations, which are each unrelated to health and safety, is grossly disproportionate to the restrictive, offensive, and shocks the consequence. But again, this lady is going through basically the same thing I am, except my violation was fixed and wasn't caused by anything I did, just like her. Now, the storm caused her fence to go down. The storm caused my fence to go down. But also what caused my fence to go down was the neighbor's freaking trees that were a violation. So if you would have took care of the violation for the 5 years that I complained, then we wouldn't be here today. None of my, which is the fence, situation risk the public safety or anything else, just like hers. But again, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, phone call in my ear. That's what I was going to say. But in court, they were really trying to push it to where it was a safety violation. They argued back and forth, and basically they said they tried in every way with me to get the safety people to consider it a safety violation. And they said there was no way it could be. So it's funny how in that court, that supposed court hearing at the code office, they literally right in front of me said they were pushing to try to find a way to make it a safety violation and could not. This is your freaking county for you. This is your rip you off county for you. This is the violation of our rights and our constitutional rights. These are the people who are running our system. This is wrong and has to be stopped. Code was made for a very certain reason. Even though it was a money-making scheme, it was supposed to be for people who let their houses turn into shacks, like my next door neighbor, who let the shack in the back end up a rat and roach and termite infested flea junkyard that I was living next door to that they did nothing about. Instead, they attack people like you and me who are hardworking people just trying to freaking get by. And I'll be damned if they steal my family home from me. But I have the right to live in peace. I have the right to live and not be harassed and threatened and bothered and have letters sent to my house every couple weeks saying, if you do any of these things to your house, you will be fined $100 a day. When I haven't even had any plans to do anything to my house. And then on top of that, you're trying to make violations where there are none. And you're trying to make me accept responsibility for something that happened 15 years ago before I even got the house. And since I didn't fall for it, you're coming after me full force. Well, we're going to find a way to stop this because this is wrong. And I have people working on it. But if any of you have any help or advice for me, please contact me. Comment below. Hit me up in my email. This has got to stop. The violation of people's rights has got to stop. Them using positions to harm people. And I'll tell you this, above all, we are in a pandemic where people are not even working and barely can afford their bills. Like I said, everybody in my household has lost their job besides me. I'm taking care of everybody. And this is when you're coming after people in their homes during a pandemic where you know people have no money? This is our government for you. Wake up, people. And now I'm going to have to cut this short, and I'm going to have to save the rest of my story for tomorrow because I'm hitting that hour mark, and I really don't want to get over that hour mark. Plus, I have no light, and I look like a monster again. So, people, again, if you have any advice, helps, or anything for me, please comment below or hit me up on my email. If you know somebody who can help me here in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida, Lake Worth, Florida, Gardens, I'm in all these areas, please send them my way. Let me know, because right now I really need a good attorney. I have an attorney that's just helping me through this, but I need an actual attorney to take the case. I want to check on this justice thing too. I don't know if they'll take it because I haven't been fined yet, but I'd rather not get to that point. I want to stop the harassment now of the neighbors and of the code. And again, one last thing is they're trying to make it sound like, oh, we don't want to come out to your property no more. You're a problem property. No, you've been called out to my property for 15 years for unfounded things. So if it was for founded things, I could see your point, but this is unfounded, and now they're trying to use it like it's my fault. And I know I have to go get all the police records, all the animal control call-ins, and all the code call-ins from this neighbor. And I'm taking videos of all the yards in my neighborhood so that they know my house is actually better than half the houses in that neighborhood. And that I have not done anything wrong. And again, what was caused here was all caused by the neighbor you allowed to violate and live horribly next to me. That's why this happened. Not because of me. But my house is worth it, isn't it? So I'll leave you with that. Again, there's a personal story of me. So you know I'm just like you and going through the same kind of stuff you people are. And it has to stop. We have to stop being robbed by our government and harassed and beat down and put into positions like this. It has to stop. This is not freedom. This is not, our pursuit of happiness. This is not a pursuit of happiness. They're standing in your way every chance you get. And again, this is not freedom. This is my home. This is my property. I own it. I shouldn't have to check with anybody or get permission, even if I wanted to do something in my house. Code was for, like I said, people who allow their houses to turn into shacks. This is not the case. The next door neighbor, that's a different story, and he caused my issue. And instead, y'all let him keep being Sanford and Son while I keep getting harassed after I fixed my situation that he made for me. And then you go digging 16, 17, 18 years in the past for something somebody didn't do that's not even from my family or household. It was from a company who is still in business that I filed against, and I guarantee they haven't done nothing. Are you going after them? Because that's who you're supposed to be going after. All right, guys. I'm right there at that hour mark. I love you. Have a great night. I hope this gave you some connection to me, that we have to unite. We are going through the same things. And if you have answers, again, and you please share them with me. And I want people to be able to connect on here to get answers. So the next person who comes to my channel and says, I seen that video, I want to be able to give them answers and help. But it's time we join together and put a stop to it all. This has really infuriated me. And I've suffered with my health because of all this stress and what they've been putting me through. And that has to stop too. So guys, I love you. You have a great night, and I will see you in my next video. God bless.